We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
You're listening to Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio American Network from our flagship station in the nation's capital, WWRC in Washington, D.C. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. On today's show, we are talking the upset that came to Washington, D.C., what's happening for the Republicans, what's happening for the Democrats, and more importantly, what's happening for the American people. Remember, this show is proudly sponsored by LibertyNation.com, where you can access podcasts, breaking news, analysis, and a range of biting and brilliant shows to whet your appetite for freedom and your fondness for the great American Constitution. And you're on Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides, and we're joined by today Liberty Nation's executive editor, Leesa K. Donner. Now, Leesa, thanks for coming in. I really wanted to get your take on Donald Trump's proposal for the new jewel of the Mediterranean, the Riviera of the Middle East, Trump's plans for Gaza.
Good to be here, Mark. I feel like it's deja vu all over again, with North Korea.
Sure.
They had such beautiful land in order to make skyscrapers and he's a builder. He sees everything in that kind of perspective. And so he looks at Gaza, which, isn't much of a piece of land, but even he can dream that it's going to be gorgeous and beautiful. I think the business of the U.S. is going to take it over is probably, an art of the deal move.
Yes. Yeah, that's pretty much where I came in on it, that the idea that the U.S. is going to go in there and, it might happen, never put anything to the side when dealing with Donald Trump, but it'll go in and own the territory and then have some major building projects with contractors and whatnot.
A jewel by the sea. You can see the billboards now. Right?
Well, they're not selling much beachfront property nowadays. Barack Obama and the like have brought it all up. But so there's this right on the Mediterranean. But I do think it's an after the deal thing where it's like you shoot for the moon and you say you want everything, you want all this, but what you really want is somewhere several pegs down. And then when people kind of get panicked about he's going for everything, and then they come back and they'll negotiate somewhere in the middle, which is probably what Trump is after. And what do you think that is that Trump's after?
Okay, but Mark, we got to talk about the elephant in the room. The leftist media they bite at this every time. They go for the simplest answer, which is not where he's going, and they hair on fire, moments. Just is astounding to me that they're still back there with their brains trying to figure out what he's doing.
I don't think that they're naturally stupid people in the Fourth Estate. I don't believe that. I think there's smart people in there. So there must be another reason. Because, I heard what he said, and I put it through what I like to call my levels of analysis. Well, I do it with nursery rhymes as well, like Humpty Dumpty, for example. I'm up to 7 levels of analysis with Humpty Dumpty about what it means. And I did that straight away with Donald Trump's thing. And I am not, much as I would like to think it, I am not smarter than the entire collective of the U.S. Fourth Estate. So what are they doing? Why do they go for, as you say, the lowest possible interpretation of what's happening? And I think the idea is that they're not allowed to dig deeper or get speculative because their readership doesn't want anything other than Trump did this was bad, therefore it's terrible and evil. And so I don't think their readership will allow it because they want a reinforcement of their prejudices, their beliefs, and they don't want to face anything that's outside of that particular bubble.
Well, you may be right. It seems to me like they miss the essence of what he's going after, and maybe that's the reason they do it. But it just seems so predictable. Let's just say that, predictable.
It's the lowest common denominator of thought, right? That's what they're aiming for. They're looking for what will appeal most broadly to the people who are on their side of the argument. And that's not just saying that it's just the left that does it.
Well, I worry, Mark, that they think that Americans only read headlines. They're all pretty stupid. And so we have to go for the lowest common denominator. And Americans aren't.
Yeah. Yeah. They're
They're quite, dialed in.
very much. I mean, here's the thing. It's easy to be dialed in when you've got something like X out there. Because that has revolutionized how people get Legally Blonde cup there, Leesa. I see it. That has revolutionized
universal, yeah.
How people receive their news, because you can go on X and you can get a good look around at just about everything that's happening within about 5 minutes, which you can't do even on a digital page. You've got to go to 2 or 3 sites, maybe 4 or 5 sites to get the complete spread of what's going on. But you can do that in X now in just a few minutes. So the digital broadsheets and red tops, they have to provide something different. And what they're providing is a comforting echo chamber to both the people on the left and the people on the right. And the way they echo that is by shooting for the lowest common denominator that reinforces the basest instincts of the people who are wedded to their particular ideologies, whether that's on the left or the right. Perhaps that, that's just
underestimating the American public. Look where it got them.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, these places are falling apart now.
Isn't there a Latin phrase that works here? The thing speaks for itself.
Res ipsa loquiter or loquiter, I think.
Yes.
I'm not sure of the pronunciation there.
You are the Latin man. Okay, thank you.
Well, the only Latin I was thinking of was status quo, as quoted by Ronald Reagan. Status quo is Latin for the mess that we're and that appears to be the status for the media at the moment. Well, I don't want to say the media, specifically the big box media, the legacy media.
Yeah.
And we know this from personal experience, Leesa, that boutique outlets that are focused on maybe looking at something through a lens, like, for example, Liberty Nation, the sponsor of this here show, looks at modern politics and happenings in the world through the lens of the Constitution. And that's a very specific lens. So everything's about constitutionality, liberty, freedoms, things like this, things that affect everyday people, but with that lens, the idea of the founding fathers. And these places like ours, we're rising massively at the moment. And many other boutique places that deal with specific areas are, but the ones that are looking for the scattergun approach to delivering news, I won't name names, but your main national broadsheets, they're suffering. They're suffering under the weight of their own expanse. And this is being pushed harder by the fact that you now have Donald Trump 2.0, I guess maybe even Donald Trump 3.0, who seems to be creating news on an hourly basis, and they can't keep up trying to do everything. So they're just failing at delivering anything, really.
Well, I think you make a point. We could go on and on about the liberal media, but let's get into some of the stuff he's been doing, because that's really fascinating.
Well, I tell you what, we will pick up what Donald Trump is doing, what his administration is doing after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.